this idea of relationships keeps coming up, right? So we talked about marriage. Alessandro, this is coming back to you. Going to embarrass you a little bit here. But, organic relationships are really important.
Yeah.
And I think today they're terrifying. So part of this idea of stepping up and being of service to somebody else, right? What do you think? I mean, in terms of what you're seeing within, your AmeriCorps and Service Corps. I mean, are you seeing more women step up for service than men?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a service corps in California that has right now over 10,000, mostly young people who are serving in a variety of capacities. And it's about a 2-to-1 ratio of women. So women are stepping up to serve and volunteer, which won't surprise any of the women listening to this, that women are stepping up and want to do it. But we do see there's a scarcity of men stepping up and willing to take the risk because it does involve some courage. It does involve the sort of a leap of faith that you do have something to offer and that you're needed. And so we do absolutely see that, and that's part of the problem. It's why we created the Men's Service Challenge, is to say to men throughout our state, we actually need you. There's a huge gap to be filled. There's young boys everywhere looking for a role model, looking for someone to mentor them, to love them, to guide them, and not enough men are stepping up to do it. And it's a problem, and we got to fix it. And so that's why we created this challenge.
I'm with you. So I'm going to come back to you on your essay because I'm going to. Okay. Well, perfect. Then I'm going to embarrass you for a second. So we're talking about raw organic relationships and the need for them, and how you've personally experienced that with your big brother. And I asked you. I said, "Do you have a girlfriend?" Answer's no. Okay. So you shared with me a current Vogue article. What was the name of that Vogue article?
The headline of this very viral Vogue article is having a boyfriend embarrassing now? And it's completely blown up. It stirred up a lot of different conversations regarding the topic, regarding how relationships between men and women are defined today. And I think that kind of rhetoric is very harmful, not only to men, but also to women, because I think for all the progress that this country has made with women and with other demographics that were adversely affected by certain policies, right, or certain behaviors in public, I think it's not right to put other people down in order to bring another group of people up. And no man wants to go back to like the 50s, for example, to a world where women were subservient. That's not a ideology that a lot of people my age talk about. No one wants to be that kind of person, I don't think. But I think that's what that article is kind of hinting at, is that the progress that society has made with women, where, offered more educational opportunities, more opportunities in the workplace. And the embarrassing part of it is that being in a relationship with a young man is seen as a step back for those women that are pursuing a higher education or a higher position in their place of work. And that's simply not the case. I don't think a lot of people think like that. But I think the fact that that kind of ideology is being spread throughout like very public channels that are read a lot, I think does a lot more harm than it does good, because I think it makes men feel like, well, if I'm not needed in a relationship and I'm not needed in society, then where do I fit? Because women are graduating at a higher rate than men, they're the beneficiary and recipient of more upward economic mobility, which is great, right? I think that's the thing that a lot of conversations around men revolve, is that how do we bring men back up without also putting women down? And I think that's the balance that we have to strike, because men, a lot of the men that I spoke to in preparation for this, I asked them, hey, what do you think is what do you think being a man is, and what do you think is important for you to focus on when you're in a relationship? And it's, oh, well, I want to be a provider, I want to be a protector, I want to make sure that my kids don't have to work that hard to get a college education that they don't have to take out loans for. I want to make sure that I'm able to take a nice vacation every once in a while. And without that kind of almost forced obligation where it's like, oh, I have to be a provider, there's no set path for men to want to think like, oh, like I have to be a provider and I have to do this, I have to do that, because women can do that for themselves, and that's great. But when it comes to articles like that, it's like, oh, well, now I feel even more alienated, I feel even more useless. And what do you do about that?
What do you think, Josh?
Because there's like I'm
Well,
sure.
and I'm picking on Josh because I know Josh has a great marriage and his wife is, forgive me, a badass. So I mean, you've clearly gone forward, not backwards. So I mean, how does that land with you?
Yeah, I think it comes down to alignment, and I think that's where a lot of, at least my peers and young folks that I've talked to, that's where it's lacking, because as you mentioned, men want to feel like they belong and that they are needed and all those things.
Yeah.
Women feel the same way.
Yeah.
And it's just about finding how those two individuals kind of mesh. I mean, I saw a stat the other day. It talked about, I want to say it was in the 80s, I believe. But there was 80% of men at the age of 30 were married. And now that percentage has dropped down to 32%. And a lot of that is functionally, people are just now getting married later, starting, careers, continued education, and that process is shifted. But I think, an article like that continues to do damage, because there's this notion that men and women can't coexist and can't work together and can't be partners, and it's not the case. Even though the divorce rates in the country aren't great, I think it's still 50%. It's a stat. If you find somebody that you're aligned with and that shares the same morals, vision, and just the mentality that you share, marriage is great.
Yeah, and I think that
relationships can be great.
Yeah, that isn't happening because there's no spaces where these two groups of people can have conversations with.
Yeah, for sure. But I think the notion of what a man is has also changed in that. And I'm 42 years old, so I can't say the back in my day sort of speech, but what I can say is, a man, in the 50s, 60s was this stoic individual that, had no weaknesses and, had no vulnerabilities and, just had to be strong all the time. And that has evolved where, men have to be vulnerable. They have to be able to communicate. They need community. They need individuals that they can talk to, because life can kick your butt. And, finding that sense of community, I think, is important, but also finding individuals that you can align with, that you can build and grow with, is even more important. And I think that's been the biggest disconnect that I've seen in men and women of the modern era, is this sense of alignment or lack of alignment, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, Officer Fryday, this is really enlightening when we think about the language. Right? So, calling out a challenge is one part. And then the other part is are you hearing me, right? Am I speaking a language in which you're responding to? And I think what we're hearing today is, that we've identified that there is a crisis, right? Whether you want to look at graduation rates, suicide rates, or divorce rates. I mean, the reality of it is we're looking at relationships. And I think you said something really important that, I kind of want to go back to when we think about standing up to serve, is that it's hard. Relationships are hard. No one said it was going to be easy. They just said it was going to be worth it, right? And so if you're thinking of if you're young, I should start with, if you're a young lady and you're listening, Alessandro is available, highly evolved, upwardly mobile, looking for a relationship. But I think, for all the men out there that are listening to this, I mean, what would you say to them, Commissioner Fryday?
Well, most importantly, what I'd say is that we need you. We need you to step up in a big way, and that's what we're creating the opportunity for. I love that Josh earlier talked about infrastructure. He talked about his family infrastructure with his brothers, that was there, that was built in for him. And I think the challenge now in our society is we haven't built an infrastructure for people to be part of something anymore. So we know that people are not joining organizations like they used to. They're not involved in churches or religious affiliations like they used to. We were very isolated, even though we all have these phones that we think we're connected to each other. We're really not. And so one of the things we're trying to figure out is how do we create that civic infrastructure that we know people need and thrive in. And we also know from the research now. And so this is why what I'd say to anyone listening to this is like, you're not weird if you feel like you don't have a place yet. Because we as a society have not created these opportunities. That's on us. That's the conversation we're having today. That's what you're building. That's what we're trying to do in California. That's what you're doing with your Big Buddies program. And so we have to create these structures. And we know from the research now that men actually, and boys specifically, need structure to thrive, much more so than young girls. So if you think about like the importance of Boy Scouts, or the military, which I had a chance to serve in, or a basketball team, right? That's a structure where you are part of a team, you're a part of a unit, you know your role, you know your responsibility, and you know that people are counting on you. That's what is so needed right now, and that's why the infrastructure that we're trying to create together with this Men's Service Challenge, while just scratching the surface of what we need, I think is this attempt to build that civic infrastructure that is so sorely missing from today's society.
And I come back to this image or this, when, that social media is loud. It's very loud. So we have to be louder, right? These conversations have to be bigger and bolder and stronger. And men like yourselves, right? I mean, people who've been very, very successful and are on their way to doing really great things. We need to tell other men that we need you, right? So, Josh, what would you say to a young man who is thinking about volunteering, stepping up?
Can I look at the camera and say it? Please. No, we need you. No, honestly, I would say to demystify it, number one, you don't need to be perfect. You are much more relatable than you think you are to these young men. And you can help them in ways that you can't even imagine. It's the little things. It's the intangible things. It is this little bit of advice that got me the right application for the college scholarship or for this team. It's understanding the impact that you could possibly have, even if it's on one child's life, and leaning into that, because it will be as valuable as anything that you could ever accomplish in business or any of that stuff. And so feeling vulnerable enough and feeling comfortable being vulnerable enough to have that conversation with yourself, but also with another individual, and saying, I don't have it all figured out, but I can help you navigate this because I've been through this process before, is incredibly critical. So I'd say just try it. And I guarantee if you try it, you'll continue to try it and you continue to enjoy it. And you may not find the perfect fit that first time, but as you go through that process, you'll find somebody that really resonates with you and that you can help grow into a young man. And you'll be incredibly proud of that individual, but you'll also be proud and I think happy with the service that you've provided, because that's what it is all about at the end of the day.
Can I just highlight what Josh is saying right now? I love that you just nailed it. That, like, you're going to enjoy it. You will. Like that. That's the message we need to say loudly. That if you want to be happy and you want to wake up in the morning and feel good about yourself and like look yourself in the mirror and know that you have purpose and have some pep in your step, serve. Like the service is not sacrifice. It can be hard. Don't get me wrong. Service is hard and it can be challenging, but that's good. That's where we grow, and that's the fun part about service. And so I think I love that you nailed that, and we need to say that like. This is how you becoming a mentor to somebody else that needs it. You're going to have so much more fun. I bet Ralph has a blast hanging out with you.
I mean, I hope.
Yeah, I know he does. I know he does. Like
does.
that's
Yeah,
and
so
that's
do I.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's mutually beneficial. It's and so I think also we have to dispel the notion that somehow there's sacrifice involved. Because actually there's ultimate fulfillment and happiness that comes when you serve.
And you can integrate that individual into what you're doing. You don't have to create some new, weekend activity. If you're going to a baseball game or going to a football game or going to work out, you can integrate your little into that exercise, right? And it create an opportunity for that person to become a part of your life. It doesn't have to be this partition wall that you create these separate activities for. And so, you talk about it not being hard. It's not if you just include them in what you're already doing.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think that sums it up is you just want to be included.
Yeah.
I think the biggest and most beneficial benefit in terms of like what I got out of it, which I don't think he thought I would get anything out of it all, was him just taking me to his work. And it's a warehouse in Santa Ana, and it's a framing contractor for like commercial buildings. And my dad, who's also in the trades, and uncles who are in real estate and whatnot, I have kind of always wanted to venture into this industry, but I never really had a chance to. And so Ralph simply just invited me, like, hey, come take a look at what I do. I got to see things that I never thought I would, and getting stoked about something that isn't traditionally very exciting was the way that I found what I wanted to do as a career. And if it wasn't for Ralph being like, hey, come to work with me and like see what I do, I wouldn't have figured out like, hey, like I really like construction. And I think being included in things like that can have these really weird, crazy ripple effects where you just never know what's going to come out of it. I think I often think back to a time where I included someone and I never thought anything was going to come of it. It was as a kid, I was in 7th grade, and I was looking at Mars through a telescope or something like that. And I was like, hey, I don't even remember this kid's name, but it was like, hey, come over here and, come check this out. And look at some, different stars and the ISS, and that was that. And 5-6 years later, I find out that he moved to Tennessee and came back to visit, and we met at a 4th of July party, and he was like, hey, I remember you. You were the guy that invited me to come look at some stuff through a telescope when no one else wanted to hang out with me. I was like, whoa, like, that's insane.
How did that feel? Did that feel good?
Yeah.
Did you feel needed?
I felt like it's hard to even verbalize, because that's such a, for one, very big span of time for something to be remembered, and for something so small, at least that I thought was small, but made that big of an impact. Goes to show that mentorship doesn't need to be this like top-down thing where, like you said, like you don't have to be the next Michael Jordan or currently some sort of like superstar. I think oftentimes the best kind of mentorship that I've ever participated in or been a beneficiary of has been that kind of side-by-side mentorship, where Ralph isn't so much of a teacher, but more so a peer, and being able to speak to one another as equals in a sense, and being like, hey, how do I fix this? Like my best friend Tyler, who I often think is like the most successful person that I know. He's 20, but he's not a millionaire. He's not all these things that social media says you need to be successful. He just has a super cool garage with a lot of tools and is able to work on his truck whenever he wants to. And that to me is a very big indicator of success, is are you able to do what you want to do that makes you happy? And being able to ask him those sorts of questions is another really great source of mentorship that I'll always be grateful for.
Well, this has been an amazing conversation, and I feel like we might need to have a part 2. But you hit on so many topics. I just want to kind of tie it all back together. There's a phrase I love: you can't be what you can't see. Yeah. So when we talk about business, when we talk about men in the workforce today, and we want to figure out, like, what can I do today? What's one solution that I can take away from this conversation? Is introduce a young man to a world that he doesn't know yet. Bring them to work with you. Talk to them about careers. If you have young boys out there, I'm a boy mom. We talk about, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And of course, my kids want to be basketball stars. Maybe they will. Who knows? I can jump. But you cannot be what you cannot see. So when you think about mentorship, it's connection, it's belonging, it's access, it's exposure. And in academic speak, it's social capital, right? I mean, there's more kids, more first-generation kids, male or female, graduating from college today than ever before. But that doesn't necessarily mean it translates to a job. So there are so many things you can do if you're a man out there and you're inspired by this conversation. Well, that's what this podcast is about. Mentorship matters. There's a way, and selfish plug for me, there's a way for you to get involved at any possible age. If you want to be in our Big Careers program, if you want to be in our Sports Buddies program, if you want to walk through the front door like Ralph and be in our community program, we have so many ways to engage you today. And if we inspired you, and like you guys have inspired me, I hope everyone come and visits us at ocbigs.org, iebigs.org, because I think we can affirmatively say mentorship matters. Thank you for following today.